Welcome on in, everybody, to another exciting episode here of D-Backs Dispatch with two of your three hosts, myself, Brett, and my man, Gabe. Brandon is a little bit under the weather tonight, so hopefully he's feeling a little bit better. Brandon, be good, my friend. Hopefully you are joining us for the next one. But we're here to discuss a fun series against the Rockies, or at least most of it was fun. I know the D-Backs were not able to complete the sweep as we were all hoping, but either way, I guess, if you're trying to stay in the positives, they do win 2 of 3 against the worst team in baseball. A little more on that later. But if this is your first time here joining us at D-Backs Dispatch, we want to welcome you on in. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really does help out the algorithm. If you guys have, whether it's like Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to all your podcasts, go and leave us a rating, whether you think we're 5-star worthy or not. Either way, we'd love to hear it. I believe we also have in our Discord and on our Twitter a link to give us your thoughts. Maybe like a review or like what you like, what you don't like about the show to kind of like help us. Again, get better. We're always looking for improvements. So again, make sure you check that out. While you're there, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well. Then make sure you guys join the Discord. It's also pinned over there. And then go over to azsnakepit.com. A bunch of great articles. Josh puts out a bunch of banger recaps for these podcasts. So if you like more written content in that form, that's over there, as well as a lot of other great written content in general. So again, azsnakepit.com. You guys want to check it out. But like I said, we're here to discuss a D-backs series win over the Colorado Rockies that I know a lot of us were nervous about because every game in Coors Field is always an absolute hellhole. And the first game of the series was just that. It was the most Coors Field game I think that I probably would have ever predicted the D-backs to play. They did take this one as a score of 14-8. I believe they went ahead pretty early on there. Let me double check there. Looks like they went ahead pretty early on. They got a 2-0 lead after two. Rockies got one back in the third. D-backs put up 4 in the fourth. Looks like, pretty comfortable 6-1 lead. They have Zach Gallen on the bump, who has not been looking too great. Hopefully, maybe he could right it wrong, but immediately gives up 6 runs. But thankfully, the D-backs took advantage of Coors. They did not stop the scoring there. Put up another, 8 runs, or another 8 runs throughout the rest of the game. Held the Rockies to just 1. Like I said, came out to a final score of 14-8. Zach Gallen, not the greatest line. 5 innings, 10 hits, 7 runs. Obviously, 6 of them in that 1 inning alone. 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, and 2 home runs allowed. His season ERA is now up to 5.60, and he is, unfortunately, the worst starting pitcher ERA wise out of all qualified starting pitchers. There was some positives in here. Gino went 4 for 6, 3 RBIs, 2 home runs, home run number 299 and 300. So congrats to Gino. He is now the third on the list. Third on the list. Words are hard for me today. Goodness. Third on the list for Venezuelan-born players, home run wise, behind Miguel Cabrera and Andres Galarraga. So congrats to Gino. Could tell Gabe called it before the series, looking like a genius here. He was 3 for 6 with 5 RBIs in game 1. Lourdes, Tawa, Grichuk, Herrera, surprisingly, and Vargas all had 2+ hits in the game. And then the bullpen, a little bit of a lockdown action, which we don't normally expect to see in Coors Field. Murillo, Beeks, and Ginkel went 3 innings combined with no hits, no walks, and 6 strikeouts, which was nice. And then the only bullpen pitcher that didn't, put up a 0 was Kyle Backus, who only allowed 1 run, but it was his first run allowed at the MLB level. So, Gabe, anything that stood out to you throughout this game? Like I said, I know there's a lot there. Gallen kind of struggled. Pretty much the entire offense got in on the fun. I believe every single person had a hit. Maybe not Domo, but either way, it was just the most Coors game ever. And I'm curious your thoughts on the game and maybe what stood out to you throughout that Friday night spectacle.
So Perdomo actually did get a hit. He was 1 for 6. But it's just everyone doing their job. I think that's something that we kind of expected since it is Coors, especially with the way things started. They put up 6 runs, and Gallen instantly gave the lead back to the Rockies. Gave up 7 runs almost instantly, and it felt like one of those games where you felt like if you look up, it's going to be a 13-10 game or something like that. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. 8 runs is still a lot, but luckily, I think the bullpen for the most part did its job, and Backus did allow a run finally. But it's fine, especially with the way the score was. It wasn't too bad. But the main thing I just wanted to see about this team was a consistent scoring team. They scored in 7 out of the 9 innings, which is something that we don't really see much from this team. It's basically all concentrated to 1 inning, whether it's 2 or 3 runs. kind of the way things are for this team, and especially this year. And having them score in multiple innings, even scoring multiple runs in multiple innings, really, really helped out. And was, they were able to waste a lot of the Rockies pitchers, get some of these guys on a groove, like Cattell. I mentioned him in our last podcast as a guy to look out for, just because, he had gone, excuse me, he had gone for the most part. He had like quite a few games where he had multi-hit games, but it'd be like a couple singles or a double or something like that. He hadn't shown his true power that he has. In this case, he went 3 for 6, 5 RBI. He had a home run and a couple of doubles as well. And it was just something where, we want him to break out and start to, I think on broadcast mentioned it, playing unconscious baseball where it seems like anytime he goes up to bat, he's going to hit something. He's going to hit something really hard hit. And this series and this game in particular, I think he was doing just that, which is, this team can only go as far as their MVP candidates can go. It's, Cattell and Carroll. You do need both of them in order for this team to be in contention for a playoff spot, because we've seen what happens when one of them is out. This team, they can do good, but they also struggle. You need them both at the top of the lineup, scoring and runs, and that's the main thing I want to see. And Gallon, he was downright terrible. I mean, he was also somebody I highlighted in a negative way, saying like I don't know what he's going to do outside of the curveball. Like I was curious to what else he was going to throw, and I mean it is cores. I don't know about you, Brett, but like, are you ready to call the time of death with Zach Gallen?
Yeah, man, like I have been one of the biggest, especially when we first got him. I was one of the biggest and earliest members of the Zach Gallen, fan club. The hype train, calling him, for multiple years was like that's future Cy Young Award winner Zach Gallen to you. Uh, I even got a little bit of a collection of his cards in my case there, but it's just unfortunate. I mean, I know we talked about even last time, like some of the comments. Which again, shout out to everybody that's listening here. I know Scott Mack, let's do this. Appreciate you stop by. Anybody else, if you're in here, let us know what's up. Let us know your thoughts on everything that we do discuss as well, because we like to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions. But like even Jeff brought up last time, like I'm not even sure if this is necessarily like a pitching coach issue, because even when we had Strom, he started to, he didn't have the greatest postseason in 23. I know that he was really solid, at least in that World Series game. I think he went 6 innings, only gave up like he had a no hitter going for most of it. So he did have some bright spots here and there. In 23, he was really solid, but pretty much ever since the 2023 All Star break, he's just not been the Zach Gallen that I think any of us would have expected. Like I'm going to look up his stats really quick on Fangraphs here to get the splits. I believe it was brought up before, but I think and it sucks because we'll talk about it a little bit in a second. But even if some other team to take a flyer on him, because I know it's trade deadline season, people have been talking about how he's still a name that somebody's trying to mention and whatnot. But I just don't personally see him becoming or fixing what he is going to be this year. But my fear is that he just ends up becoming who he was before, uh, when some of the team trades him. So I'm not sure when the All Star break was in 23, but looking it up and doing some splits, since July 1st of 2023, Zach Gallen, he finished 23 with a 3.92 ERA. All of last season, he had a 3.65 ERA. So again, not like horrible. You pretty much take a 3.65 ERA from a lot of your pitchers, just not an ace that Zach Gallen's supposed to be. Like you usually might take that. Like if Brandon Pfaadt could give us that as like our quote unquote 5 pitcher or even 4 pitcher, I'd take that all day. But he's supposed to be our ace, and he's just not doing that. Especially pitching to a 5.60 ERA this year is horrible. His like strikeouts per nine is down like to 8.4. His walks per nine is sitting at 4, which is just unacceptable. Like that's a big issue. I believe he's leading the league, or at least up there in walks allowed, and he's just getting hit at a pretty decently hard rate, like 37% hard hit rate. Batters are. It's funny because some of his other peripherals, like line drive percentage, is actually lower than it was the previous two. He's not getting as many ground balls and a lot more fly balls, so maybe that's part of it. But I don't know. He's just not the Zach Gallen that I remember seeing in 21, 22, 23. The one that got no run support but would go out there and twirl a 6 inning 2 hit or like 6 inning 2 run gem. And I don't know. Like I'm not too far off from saying that his career as a Diamondback could be over. I don't know if somebody's going to want to trade for him at the deadline, or if he You mentioned in the past, like he might just be getting a 1 year prove it deal at this point, kind of like Pete Alonso got as a Boris client, where who knows, maybe he gets a 1 year prove it deal and turns back into the ace and then gets a bunch of money. But we got to actually, wait to see that happen. And at the rate we're seeing him this year and even pretty much the end of last year, I don't know exactly what it's going to take to find that Zach Gallen that was expected to get, 200 plus $1 million.
Yeah, and I think it's a very confusing situation with Zach Allen because, if you look at that All Star year, if you look at all the numbers, all the usage, like how hard he was throwing, everything is basically the same. There's truly nothing that's truly different about his repertoire. He's using the fastball the same, curveball, like everything. We look at savants and you compare the seasons. For the most part, he throws it all the same. He throws it as much as he normally does. The velocity didn't dip, but there's just no value there. He's just walking way too many. Like in 23, he had a 5.6 walk rate. He's more than doubled that. He's at 10.3 at this point, and his even like and we've talked about certain pitchers being unlucky, and yeah, a lot of them have been unlucky. But and Zach Allen has to a certain extent. But even if you look at his expected ERA, his expected ERA is at 4.63. So it's not like he's unlucky to the point where he has a 3.2 and then his ERA is at 5, which sometimes happens to certain guys, and that's just not the case. He's just not good, and you see him pitch, and you're like, what is there? Like, is it just a fastball command? Because I mean, that's mostly what we've been talking about, just a fastball command. He's not hitting it, throwing it for as many strikes as we would like him to throw it at. He's not, don't have that pinpoint accuracy, but everything else, you look up and down, those savant pages and his better years, his worst years. There's just almost nothing there where you're like, you can't see anything where you expect it to be, the main reason why. Like, I guess maybe I'm looking up and down. It's just, like the savant page, and it's the same thing almost. It's just the numbers have just gone down drastically. So I truly don't know what Zach Allen's issue is. Like, at this point, if he was tipping, we would have found out by now. Like, I really don't know what it is other than just a fastball command. He's just not throwing anything for strikes the way he should have. He's walking too many guys, and I mean that's what's hurting him. If he walks the guy that runs usually scores, so instead of a solo home run to 2 run home runs, and kind of the same thing with Brandon Fies, if and when he allows a run to score. When Fought, was doing good, he was allowing 1 run to score with just a solo home run. Now, like we saw today, I believe it was a 3 run home run. Put the game out of reach for the C lineup of that they brought out today.
C lineup is being generous if we're being honest too.
I mean, that's why I call it Sunday Punt Day. Like, that lineup was absolutely a let's get out of here lineup, which shouldn't happen, but we can get to it later. But I just don't know. Like, there's a lot of fans talking about trading Zach Gallen, and to those people, I would say for who? Because they're like, oh, literally anything. Like, who? Name one
Yeah.
person. Name one person and one team who would take Zach Gallen right now. Because, like, honestly, if you're telling me the Dodgers want Zach Gallen, I probably wouldn't give it to him because I'm like, okay, maybe they found something that we're just not sure of. But as of right now, I hate to see Zach Gallen go, but they might have to let him go. I mean, this performance is just not there and hasn't been there for a couple of years now. And I'm a prominent believer in the back of a baseball card to tell me who a guy really is. And in Zach's case, you're beyond just a bad year. You're 2.5 years into bad years. So I don't know. I mean, this might be who he is.
Yeah, so you kind of teed it up perfectly because that's what we're going to dive into here in a second about some D-backs that maybe some teams could be calling on potentially, and maybe who it could be, what we can get in return. But it's definitely going to be as long as there's no team in the NL West, like I'm fine if we do trade him. Like it does suck because again, we need as many arms in the rotation as we can currently. Because even as a Scott Max saying in the comments here, Gallen is trade bait, but who would replace him? That's a good point. Like it's not like we have Mena, Tommy Henry. Like if we were officially going to be out of it and turn into sellers, which, like I said, maybe some more on that in a second. Then I could see some of those guys, but we're like they're dropping like flies at the major league level, the minor league level. Like maybe Yumin Lin, maybe Spencer Geisting, but even both of them were just called up to Reno this year, to where they're not going to probably be seeing a major league mound. I would say until next year at the earliest, unless just we did become sellers and we just need somebody up here to eat innings or at least to start games because there's not really many of the people you can call upon. Um, but like I said, I think you teed it up perfectly there. The main topic I was gonna have for game one here because it was brought up in our Discord a little bit um, about not just Gallon, maybe like who's gonna trade for him, but also another guy that had an actual good game here in game one. We mentioned him is Eugenio Suarez. He's now up to 25 home runs this year. There's been a lot of people online, this like Twitter's especially, that's been saying like, oh, the Yankees want him. One of my buddies today on Twitter was saying he's like, no, need the D-backs to continue losing so the Brewers can go get him because he is making himself probably one of the more premier pieces to be targeted by a lot of teams at the deadline. A third baseman, yes, he strikes out a lot, but he's got a well into the 860s OPS. He's just so hot right now. Again, 25 home runs, and we're not even at the All-Star break when I think he had 30 home runs all of last year, obviously after a really slow start, but still. He's definitely going to be a name that, and I would prefer the D-backs to, like we've talked about in previous shows, Hazen to be more proactive and go make some moves and build on this team. Again, you can any good run can we can have 2 weeks of a run, whether you're going 7-2 over that span or just getting a few sweeps here and there can really change the momentum of a season. But again, we're getting close on that. So I guess my question to you, Gabe, everybody else listening, is if you kind of already talked about Gallon, but maybe if you wanted to expand on it more, if Gallon and or Gino are potentially dealt, who would be some teams you could see like, do you think it's one, I guess, the better option to with guys, maybe even Naylor, guys that are not guaranteed to be here next year, to try to get something rather than letting them walk in free agency? And who do you think could be a team that targets them and maybe what kind of return we could get? For me personally, I could see maybe a team like the Mets trying to take a call on Gallon. I know he pitches well against New York teams, maybe the Yankees, but it's a tough call. And then for Gino, I think there's like 4 or 5 teams. Like I said, the Brewers, the Yankees. I feel like the Cubs could probably make a call for him. There's a couple different options, and again, it sucks to even be like talking about it like this, but again, this team is only one game over 500. They're now 8 out of the West, 3.5 out of the wild card spot. They're and we'll even get to it more. Like they needed to sweep today to really keep that confidence high going into these next 6 games against subpar teams. But the rate we're seeing it, I think the possibility of a Gallon and Gino and potentially even more being traded at the deadline is becoming a real possibility.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of people want to compare this to last year. I think last year they still kind of had a better record than they do this year, if not just about the same. But you looked at what we had last year compared to this year. Last year a lot of it was injuries, and we lost Perdome right away, we lost Alec right away. We had really big injuries that just kept this team unhealthy. And so far this year, obviously we have the bullpen issues, but again, with the issues that we had with the bullpen, it shouldn't have affected this team as much as it did. And now, with the starting pitching has been a complete disaster. So, all those fans who want to be optimistic, and it's not like I don't want to be optimistic. Like I'm trying to be optimistic. We just took 2 games from the Rockies. Like I want to see it in a positive way. But the fact remains that this team didn't sweep the Rockies. They won 2 out of 3. They went up by a game, I guess, in their own win-loss record, but they lost a game in the standings. Yesterday, they were 2.5 and 7 from the division. Now they're 3.5, and now they're 8 games. Like, even though they won the series, they lost the game, and I think that's kind of the main issue that I've had with this team. And yeah, I don't want to throw everyone on, or specifically him, under the bus, but Torey Lovella, the way he's been managing, he manages to win 2 games, and then he just hopes he can win the third game. Like I mentioned in our group chat, they operate under the presumption, as an organization, presumption of health, presumption of winning 2 out of the 3 games. You can't just punt the third game every single time out, because at that point you're giving the other team one win, and you're hoping that you can steal 2. the first two games, maybe. What happens if you lose the opening game? Then do you adjust and try to win the next two? Because that's not what this team has been doing. It's not what Torre has been doing. He keeps saying he wants guys well rested and health. The entire, like, half the pitching staff is gone at this point. There's people in Reno gone now, and in terms of the guys on the field, like, it's really just been Cattell. Cattell, he had this weird injury, and Corbin got hit with the ball. Gabby got hit with the ball. It happens. Stuff like that happens. Like, there's a lot of issues that happen while you're playing that aren't soft tissue injuries like we've seen before. Is Mistakes happen. I mean, like, the guys get hit. It just happens. There's always things that can happen on the field. So it's for me, it's always like, all right, wrap the guys in bubble wrap, but don't play them at all. That's the solution. You don't want Cattell to ever get hurt. Just set him on the bench for the rest of his career. You don't want Corbin to get, injured. Set him for the rest of his career. You don't want Gurriel to get injured. Set him for the rest of the career. Like, what do you want? Like, these guys need to play. And I know that, certain guys every once in a while ask for a day off, but meanwhile they don't. And I'm sorry I'm going for a rant, but I have an overall arching point to say, why we're talking about this. There's a lot of people who just say, like, oh, well, why go to negatives now? We still have time. This team is running out of time. Like, they need to start winning streaks. We've been talking about this all season. They need winning streaks, and they need them now. And they're just, if they're playing to win two games at most, they're never going on a winning streak. This team has gone on, they won 5 games. They have yet to win 7, 8, 9 games like we've seen other teams do. And so that's why now, we're getting to the point. We're almost midway through the season, almost at the All-Star break, and we have to truly decide who this team is going to be. Because right now, this team is out of the wild card. They are 9th, 10th in the NL right now. Like, they are not close to the wild card. They're 3.5 games behind. Again, a really good week, a little good 2 weeks, they would be right there. But again, who is this team? Mike Hazen keeps saying he's going to buy. We need a actual catcher, not a guy claimed off a waiver which hasn't played since last year. We need relief pitching. We don't need guys taken off of waivers. We don't need guys who other teams are DFAing because they sucked on their team. This team, at least Hazen is saying that they want to win, and Torrey's saying they want to win. But every choice that they've made so far this season has indicated to me that I don't know, like, they don't care. They're not trying as hard as they probably should have. So now that we're getting to the point where we're talking about Gallen, I don't know what you get from Gallen. I don't think you get anything from Gallen other than salary relief. You trade him for pick to be named later. Is that what you can get for Zach Gallen? For Gino, I do think you can get a bit of a haul for him, but again, Gino's just half a season. There's a couple teams who might need him. The only team that would truly need him, I think, is the Yankees. Everyone else, I don't think necessarily needs a guy like Gino. You probably don't want to trade him in division. Gino wants to be here. He wants to stay here. So it could be a sign and trade sort of deal with Gino or you trade and sign him in the offseason if you really want him back. But that's kind of what we mentioned about Christian Walker last year, which was, maybe we trade him. I mean, we're doing bad last year at certain points. Trade him, sign him back. That obviously didn't happen. And Naylor's another candidate. I do think if this team decides to do, be sellers at the deadline, they could get a good haul for guys like Merrill Kelly, Josh Naylor, Gino. But again, what message does that send to your fan base? Like, hey, we're giving up, because this is what this team did in 2019. If you remember, they were a little bit over 500 at the trade deadline. They traded away a Hall of Famer in Zach Greinke. Could you imagine if they would have kept Zach Greinke that season and just done the 1-for-1 Jazz Chisholm for Zach Gallen? This team would have made the playoffs. They were only a couple games behind for the playoff spot that year. And a team with Zach Gallen, Zach Greinke. I believe we still have Robbie Ray that year.
Yeah, I don't think we traded him until 2020, maybe 21.
Yeah. So, I mean, this team still had a lot of that talent from the 2017 era, and a few of the young guys. I mean, Cattell was still there as well. So, and Cattell also had an MVP year that season. You can't just punt, and you can't punt games, and you can't punt series, and you can't punt the season away. But we're getting to the point where I guess we're going to have to be asking these tough questions of who can we get and what can we get from them, and the people we trade for. do they make this team immediately better, or we can have to wait a season or two to see if we got fleeced or not?
Yeah, so that's one of the unfortunate things too about, trading for things like this is, somebody we've seen it before, like we've fleeced teams necessarily where we got the better of the deal, and then sometimes probably it seems like more often than not we've been the team getting fleeced. But it's one of those where it is frustrating because again, I don't want this team to sell. I'd rather have them build around, but we're gonna need a starting pitcher at some point, so we're gonna either have to get rid of some of our higher prospects because starting pitching is something that everybody's going to need. And that's one of the reasons why people have their eyes on the D-backs because even as Louise is saying in the comments saying, I think a Merrill trade is more likely than a Gallen trade. And that's a great point too, is a lot of teams like we'll have more on Merrill in a second too. With how he's been pitching as of late, he's definitely made him a more of a hotter commodity with how many people are looking for pitching in general. So it's going to be one of those where whether it's Kelly, Naylor, even Gino especially, there's going to be some names that Hazen's going to have to make some tough choices. Whether you give up some names in the minor leagues that could blossom into stars to at least try, like you said, to avoid doing what they did in 2019, where the unknown, the what if, like what if they didn't do that? What if they actually tried to push for the playoffs? Where again, it's looking bleak right now, but there is still a chance they can do it. They need more help. They need more reinforcements, and they need their GM Mike Hazen to do that. They need a move to be made, and it sucks because there's a lot of teams that are going to be looking for right now. So the market is definitely a seller's market currently. But sometimes if you want to win, sometimes if you want to get back to the playoffs, sometimes you got to bite those bullets and you got to make a trade like that. But going into did you have something else you want to say?
No, I'm just gonna read some of the comments. I think they're
Okay.
all, you know, I guess they're agreeing, but also, chiming in as well. But one of the big points I think Elise was saying was put Corbin on the IL if he's actually injured. I think that's one of those big issues that I've had, in this last few years where guys get hit, guys go down with injury, and they're like, we're not imaging. And people have told me, like, oh, what, you really think they're not imaging? Like, these are multi-million-dollar guys. You don't think the team is imaging? They're saying they're not, and clearly they're not. If Gabby takes like 2 weeks off, and then like, oh, we're gonna image him. Okay, he has a broken finger. He's out for the next 2 or 3 weeks, if not even longer than that. And Corbin, he gets hit, he stays in the game. Like, yeah, we're not gonna MRI him or anything. Now they're like, yeah, we're gonna MRI him. That's well, you waited 5-6 days to give him an MRI. Like, why is nothing getting done right away? Like, I don't understand it. Like, I truly don't understand it. And some people have made a point about that you need a swelling to go down to give an MRI, but I'm like, I think everybody who has broken a arm before or a leg before, that thing is super swollen when you take it in for an X-ray, and they can usually see that it has that it's broken. And maybe an MRI is completely different. I don't know what the MRI is specifically for. In this case, I would have kind of assumed that MRI and X-rays are kind of the same thing. Maybe they're not. Maybe I'm just completely wrong, but maybe they're looking for some sort of soft tissue damage in his arm. But this team has to be better about that. I mean, with how long Corbin has been out, they probably should just put him on the 10-day IL, bring somebody up, because you're saying like the bench is being depleted at this point. Like we saw today when we could have, I don't know, Trey Mancini up here. He's killing it in Reno right now, but maybe some other guy from Reno. I mean, Blaze still has certain options. He can play the outfield. There's guys in Reno that you can't call up for a couple weeks. Just meanwhile Corbin is down. Like if you're not going to play him, then bring somebody up. And Tanner is also saying that they should have contingency plan for the bullpen. I think that's kind of the issue as well this whole season. Like you see a bullpen arm go out there, he's facing 3 guys, 4 guys, can't get a single out. Then after the 5th or 6th guy, finally somebody starts warming up, and I think this team has to be better with that. They need to have more of the 2 barrel guys coming in the bullpen, warming up, and like there's just this whole season has shown that there is no contingency plan for anything. And what I mentioned before, a presumption of health. They presume AJ Puck and J Mart were going to be healthy all season, so they didn't plan on any sort of contingency. They gave the presumption that Corbin Burns was going to be healthy all season. They planned on, for some reason, Erod or what's his face, Jordan Montgomery being healthy. And like, you can't just be presumptuous when it comes to health. Like health just especially in different sports like baseball. Like sometimes just guys just get injured. It happens. You see all these other teams, like the amount of depth that they have. They have so many guys that they can plug and play, and they're average to above average guys, and the D-backs just don't. Gabby goes down. I mean, I know we're going to talk about it in a bit about Jose Herrera, but or are we? I actually didn't check that
Yeah,
part of the
yeah.
notes.
So
But yeah, Jose Herrera,
we're definitely gonna bring that up
yeah,
at least
a
in the
huge,
game
huge
three.
drop off between him, Pavin being the primary DH. I mean, his OPS is dropping like a lead balloon at this point. This team planned no contingencies, and we're seeing it now with some of the injuries and just in general the underperformance.
Yes, it's funny that because we'll get to game three, especially in a minute here. But I do like even like Elisa saying the bullpen wasn't the issue today. It was terrible line of production we got. 4 hits against a pitcher leading the MLB and hits allowed. Definitely gonna have more on that later. But if you would have told me going into this, I'm like, oh yeah, the bullpen would have actually been probably one of the more shining pieces in this entire series. Um, I would have been like, okay, you know what, like. Whatever you're smoking, whatever dispenser you're getting it at, pass it around to the rest of the class here because there's no way that's a possibility. But it definitely was. Um, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. A lot of people in the comments are saying it's kind of like the goes back to the whole, especially with making moves around the team. It's the team being reactive or being proactive. Being reactive and not proactive. Like waiting longer than they need to get our Mirais, waiting longer than they need to get certain guys, you know, off this team and giving them more at bats because there's a few names in our group chat that I even mentioned that got way too long of an extended run on this team and took up a spot that yes maybe not somebody as proven, maybe not a veteran. It would have been much better than the production we're getting out of those. But like I said, that'll be more in game three. Because we still have game two to discuss. Where again, game one it does suck to even talk about, trading Gallon or Gino, but sometimes you got to look at, all the possibilities with the team that's hovering around 500. So that is something to monitor, to keep an eye out, because I believe what the trade deadline is July 31st, if I'm not mistaken. So we still have around like a month. Also want to shout out Bubba, Elise, Tanner, Red Sox Nation, Corbin Barrels, Scott, Charles, all you guys tuning in. Always appreciate seeing you guys in here. And if we don't get to your comments, keep firing them away. We'll try to touch on them throughout the show. But going into game two, definitely not the same Coors Field like game that we saw in game one with just the offense going crazy. It was actually a little bit more of a pitcher's duel, which you don't see too often. D-backs took this one and scored 5-3. Merrill Kelly has been the mainstay. He's been the man lately. 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs. Only 2 of them were earned. 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and 1 home run. His season ERA is now down to 3.36, and he's at a 3 ERA and a 1.02 WHIP over his last 42 innings. So he really has been really, really solid over the last, I'd say, like month and a half. Cattell in that game was doing Cattell MVP things, finally swinging the bat again, 4 for 4, 2 doubles. Could have been, 3, but I can see why the scorers put one of those as a single with an error and a walk. Domo went 2 for 4, 2-run home run to give the D-backs, I guess you could say it was the eventual game-winning home run, put them up 5-3. That was his 8th on the season. Gino with I think his third game in a row hitting a home run. He went 2 for 3 with his 25th bomb of the year. And then Beeks, Thompson, and Shelby Miller were really solid in this one. 3 innings, 1 hits, and 4 strikeouts. Especially Thompson was really nails in that inning, coming in with a runner on, which a little bit more, especially about that huge pickoff that he had. But just want to tip of the cap to Thompson and the bullpen for actually locking it down in this one. So my question to you, Gabe, everyone else in the chat as well. What stood out to you in this one in particular? Well, like whether it's the outing from Merrill, maybe the offense, which again for only scoring 5 runs, there was a few guys in here that really left their mark over this game, or maybe just something that doesn't show up in the box score, but something that you noticed throughout the game that you wanted to touch on.
Just very quickly, I just want to tell everyone, like, we are happy that this team at least took the series. Like, I know people have said sometimes we could be like a little bit negative or down even when they win. In this case, I think the reason why we're down is just because, like I said, we lost a game in the standings. They only went up by 1 game. They have a relatively easier part. Should be easy this next 6 games, but again, they have to take all of them. And just the fact that they weren't able to sweep, I think, kind of put a damper in their moods. Like, again, we're happy to win series, but when other teams are sweeping, you kind of get left behind a little bit. So if it seems like we're being down, that's why. But overall, we are happy, especially for guys like Cattell who are just absolutely killing the ball. But yeah, I guess to the point specifically that we're trying to, you're asking about here it's Merrill Kelly. Like the way he was able to bounce back from that first inning, the way it started, I was like, "Oh, this is another Coors game. It is just going to be just an absolute mess." And then he quickly settled down. Only was the one run, I believe that one was the one that was an earned run,
Hmm.
and he was completely dominant. 6 innings, 7 strikeouts. He did have 3 walks, but again, it's Coors Field. Like there's certain pitches that are just not going to work out in your favor. But for me, Shelby Miller was incredible in this game, just pounding the zone with fastballs, and he was somebody I believe I talked about in the last podcast as well. As I was curious what he was going to do because the split finger, I know he's been using it a lot this year and has been very good, but history shows that he's going to hit a regression point and he's not going to be as good with it as he had been. So I was curious what he was going to do here in Denver because the ball just doesn't move the same. It's not going to split. It's not going to have that insane drop that it has everywhere else. So I did think like, all right, is he going to pump fastballs? And seeing Shelby Miller throw 98 consistently.
Doc Shelby had that. I don't know
And
what he took before
just
the game, but
hitting those corners of the zone, it wasn't like he was leaving a ton down the middle either. The last strikeout, I believe, was like painted on the black on the that top part of the zone, and what's his face just swung straight through it, and that's what I want to see. Like this is a guy. I know he just blew the game in Toronto. Both of them again were off the splitter. It wasn't off the fastball, and I think he maybe just has to rely on the sweeper and the fastball because that fastball is nasty. The rising action on it, it's I think one of the more elite fastballs in the game. Even though it is 98, it's not 103 like J Mart's, but if he has pinpoint accuracy of that, just pound the zone with it, man. Like throw it in, throw it out, just throw it in, throw it out. Disco Lady is it's like a really good fastball to watch, and he's on, he's so on. So that's why when it comes to the bullpen, I know there's been a lot of talk about how bad it's been. Uh, our main guys, for the most part, have been pretty damn steady. We just need a guy to get the ninth, and as great as Shelby at times has been, Shelby would be perfect for the eighth inning. And if this team were to trade for a legitimate closer, having Shelby in the eighth, have Beeks, Thompson, whoever in the seventh, Shelby in the eighth, and then an actual closer in the ninth. I think it could take this team really, really far, and it is something exciting to see.
who knows? Maybe I know we were just talking about some trade stuff. Maybe they try to package something together for Keller and Bednar. That'd be solve at least two things. Give us an extra arm in the rotation and another guy to lock down in the bullpen. But sticking with game two, I do fully agree. Kelly, again, anytime a pitcher can do that in Coors Field, again, I know the Rockies aren't. They're a historically bad team this year. Um, at least at the rate they've been going, they've been playing a little bit better as of late, but still less than 20 wins already this into this part of the season is crazy. And for him to still only give up, 2 runs against this team was really solid. I think, like you said, settling down at the first inning, because once he gave up that home run, I was sitting there, I was like, are we really going to have another one of these goddamn Coors Field games where it's literally just a hellhole of back and forth? Just, I don't know, like, you can't be comfortable. But he locked in, he settled in. Him, like I said, Beeks, Thompson, Miller, and even as you said, like some of our main guys when they've been used in I think proper situations, and they've actually not gone like back to back days, because even like you said, Thompson's good. Just don't use him back to back outings, because back to back outings it seems like he always gets hit really hard that second one. But it's just a really good overall, like good game overall. Like starting pitching was good, bullpen was good. They got the clutch hits when they needed it, which is nice. Still a little bit more room for improvement, obviously, but can't be mad about really much from that game, especially going into the main thing that I wanted to talk about here, because there was a moment there in the seventh inning. Merrill Kelly got through 6, went out there for the seventh, gave up a leadoff double to former number 1 overall pick Mickey Moniak, and then walked the very next guy. So he got taken out of the game. Ryan Thompson got brought in. Not the greatest situation for just any bullpen pitcher. It's never tough or never fun coming in with a runner in scoring position, especially with no outs. But the first out wasn't, something about getting the batter out at home, striking him out, getting a pop out. It was actually Ryan Thompson having a nasty pickoff move to second base and getting the runner caught sleeping a little bit, which there was a little bit of controversy, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here with you guys. I don't think we have the clip loaded, but if you guys didn't see it, I think you can just even look up like Thompson or whatever. It's pretty easy to find on Twitter. But there's a lot of people, especially Rockies fans and even non-Rockies fans, saying that that definitely should have been called a balk. A balk is always a weird, kind of gray area. Uh, I'm looking up exactly the definition for balk so I can find it for you. But there's always a weird gray area for what a balk is. A lot of it is illegal motion by the pitcher that deceives the runners, resulting in a dead ball and advancing runners to the base. Failing to step directly towards the base, faking a throw to an unoccupied base, stopping the pitching motion, obviously dropping the ball, quick pitches, all those. Those are all things that count for it. But he didn't technically go home. And didn't start the motion. It wasn't like the Andy Pettit one where that thing for years got called a legal pickoff move, even though he was balking every single time because it's like 45 degrees like where the pitcher is 45 degrees from the rubber is where the line is for a balk. But either way, he had a nasty pickoff move and got Moniak. But my question to you, do you think that it, again, take the bias out of it? Do you think it was a balk, or do you think it was just one of the more nasty, like not as nasty as Merrill Kelly's pickoff move, but just a nasty move that we don't see too often, especially from a submariner, because that's a tougher thing to pull off, in my opinion.
The problem with stuff like box, it's all a judgment call, and we have seen times where pitchers have supposedly balked, and you're like, that wasn't a balk. He went straight to the mound. So it's so weird. Like it's such a weird subjective call that even objectively, not objectively, I don't know. Like I truly don't know. I saw the play a few times, and I'm like, okay, usually there's like a weird fake out. We're kind of stepping towards the mound, but with his arm action, his arm angle, he kind of did like a weird, I don't know, like a bird flapping its wings or something. Like it was just a really weird motion that he did. At first, I did think it was a balk, and they showed it on the replay, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, because like you said, like you explained the balk rules, but that's not how they usually enforce it. Usually, they enforce it by not putting their foot behind the rubber, putting their foot in front of the rubber, taking a half step, taking a second too long to wipe their brow. Like it's so many things where you're just like, I don't know. I mean, I think yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Uh, like V is saying, like it's majorly vibes based. I think that's just the truth. Like Scott Mack saying, like the Castillo with the 3 box, he was just out of sorts in that inning where he just kept blocking guys. So I don't know. Like I truly don't understand the block. Like I understand it as a concept. Like there's a concept of a rule when it comes to blocking, but I don't think even the umpires know. But there's a saying I think is like you know it when you see it, and I think in this case, I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, say it's one of those where it's kind of a lot of it can be just a gray area, even as you pointed out, V saying balks are majority vibes based. It's one of the tougher things. Again, I know major leaguers watching them and being a major league umpire, you have a lot more. But even going through umpire school when I was younger, uh, because I went to San Bernardino to actually become like a certified umpire for like little league games, and that was one of the things where it was always one of the there was never it wasn't black and white. There was a lot of gray area. There was a lot of, oh, this could be counted as a balk, 7 times out of 10, but it's almost like he has to check a certain amount of boxes for it to fully be considered a balk. Again, it's weird, but again, taking bias out of it, I'm not sure. Putting my bias into it, hell no, that was the nastiest pickoff move since Andy Pettit when he was back in the Yankees. But either way, one of the most clutch things for the game, and I know it was talked about a lot there, but I think one of the plays that will probably be forgotten about the most because. And if he doesn't get that out, yes, he did, not allow a hit for the next 2 batters, but still, that was a huge momentum swing. That was a big play that could have spiraled out because we know in Colorado we saw, especially in Game 1 for Zach Gallen, how just a few hits here and there. Like Ryan McMahon only had that home run at the beginning of the inning, but the rest of that inning for Gallen was a lot of hits just where guys weren't. It could have been the same exact thing against Ryan Thompson coming in, doesn't get the out, or even if he does, imagine if he gets called for the balk and the runners move up. Now that's runners on second and third with no outs. It's even more of a sticky situation. So just tip of a cap to Ryan. Glad to see him get out of that situation, and glad to see the bullpen lock it down because, like we said after that Toronto series, we weren't too confident in this team having really any size of a lead with how hit or miss the bullpen's been, but they were really solid, especially in this game. Because even like I said, Beeks, Thompson, and Shelby, 3 innings, 1 hit, 4 Ks. Just tip of the cap to them. Did their job and they locked home, or they locked down the win and at least secured the series win. Which moving on into Game 3, today's game that I know is fresh in all of our minds. Um, a lot of us we might have expected 1 or 2 hitters being set out of the lineup. Obviously, I know Corbin was being, they're being very precautious with him. He was going to play. Sounds about right, even though I believe he was available as a pinch hitter last night if needed. Not too surprised he didn't play. Cattell, again, like you said, if you don't want him to get hurt, just put him in bubble wrap. Don't play him in general. But he was sat down. This was the most perplexing lineup I personally have ever seen. Torrey put out. Like, he's put out some stinkers. I'm not gonna lie. He's put out some stinkers here and there. But this lineup was something, man. I mean, like Perdomo in the leadoff hole. Like, I don't hate that, but Ildemargo, Vargas in the 2 hole, Pavin Smith in the 3, Naylor 4, Suarez 5. Like 4-5 right there. That doesn't surprise me at all. Especially Grichuk in the 6 hole. But like, I don't know. It was the punt day of all punt lineups that I've personally ever seen put out by this team, and even as these brought up in the comments earlier, it's not like they were going up against like Zach Wheeler, where the lineup against it's the coughing bomb or the coughing baby versus a nitrogen bomb meme. This was coughing baby versus coughing baby in regards to Senzatella, because Senzatella was potentially the worst pitcher in baseball. I know he didn't qualify for ERA, but had like a
Yeah, he
plus
has
60.
6.7 plus ERA.
Yeah, 6.7 going into today. He was 2 for 10. I think even Dalton Feely had a tweet where he's surrendered like 14 runs in the first inning alone. And that 1-2-3 going up against there, like, again, there are a lot of times where it's on the players for not getting the job done. Like, yes, they are the ones that are, executing or not executing out in the field. But I think I even said it in the Toronto series in our group chat. Like, Torres ultimately the one that makes those lineups, and he's the one that sets it out there. And that was Gabe said earlier a C lineup, and C lineup is being very generous. So not really much on their end. Fought, I guess, kind of covering the rest of the game. Fought did go 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned with 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, and then 1 home run. The 1 home run being Mickey Moniak's go-ahead 3-run blast. That was the deciding factor in here. His season ERA is now up to 5.49. Would be, I believe, now should be putting him there kind of not too far behind Zach Gallen for one of the worst ERAs in all of baseball for qualified pitchers. And when you look over his last 7 games, pretty terrible. He has an 8.49 ERA with a 1.55 WHIP over his last 29 and 2/3 innings pitched. So he has just been getting hit really hard. I know a lot of that kind of is skewed because of that Nationals game, but still, 8 ERA over almost 30 innings is just inexcusable. Grichuk was the lone guy in the lineup that actually provided any kind of offense today. He went 2 for 3 with 2 RBI, one of them being a sac fly and one of them being the RBI single. And then, like I said, the offense just in general struggled. They had 4 total hits off the 2.10, 6.72 ERA Senzatella, 3 total base runners in the final 5 innings following Grichuk's RBI knock in the 4th inning. So, yes, tip of the cap to the Rockies bullpen. They got some good arms back there, don't get me wrong. But to only have 3 total base runners, it literally looked like they checked out the rest of the game. They were like, you know what? We won the series. It's fine. We're going to be on the plane soon. Who cares? Just god-awful showing from the offense in Coors Field against a pitcher who it seems like the D-backs just always make terrible pitchers look like Cy Young candidates. But I guess not necessarily reinforcements coming, but to all of us that had to witness Jose Herrera with our eyes once again be our main catcher here today. The D-backs did sign James McCann to an MLB deal after this game. Under a 700 OPS career OPS as a major league hitter, so nothing super insane. But at this point, even if he doesn't have the same, kind of relationship with pitchers, if he can even hit at above 200 clip, and if he could throw out a goddamn runner every now and then, and not be a borderline black hole useless player in the lineup, I'd be very okay with it. But my passing it on to you, Gabe, and everyone else in chat, what are some of the thoughts that you guys had from this game? Maybe you wanted to echo some of the, things I said about the offense. Maybe something that you wanted to look at that was at least more in the positive light, like I said, Grichuk, or maybe something else that wasn't mentioned that you wanted to kind of bring up here that stood out to you throughout Sunday's game here.
the doomsday cult that is the Pavin Smith death cult. I don't understand why people defend him so much. And I'm not just talking about fans, I'm talking about Tory and Mike Hazen because holy crap, this guy has been an absolute disaster as a DH position. They, we're talking about contingency plans. There was no contingency plan. He was a contingency plan. He had half a good season last year, and even then, it wasn't even that great either. So, and still, this team completely relied on Pavin. And I don't want to trash on Pavin too much because it's not his fault that they're using him this way. It's the team's fault. It's Hazen. It's Tory. They're the way that they want to use him and have been using him. But for just to compare his last 30 games, he's batting 217, 320 on base. Everyone says, oh, he gets on base. 320 is just above league average. So it's not even like he has this 400 on base, just ridiculous. Juan Soto West on base. Like half the D backs have, even more than half the D backs have this sort of on base. And 349 slug. That's like Jose Herrera
Throwing
level of
31
slug.
strikeouts too.
And in that time, he has, like I said, 31 strikeouts, 13 walks, two home runs and 11 RBI. Two of those home runs have just come like in the last week alone. And people were talking about like, oh, maybe he's coming out of the slump. His numbers are worse if you consider, him getting out of the slump. 150, 308, 300, 608 OPS in the last week, a 670 ish OPS in the last month. He was good for 3 weeks. That's it. Go look at his numbers in those 3 weeks. Go look at his numbers after. He has been well below average,
But the
well
haters are in
below.
shambles.
And he hits one home run every 50 games, and suddenly all of his little cave dwellers come out of their out of their shadow and say like, "Oh, see, why do you hate Pavin? Because he's kind of sucks. Like he's not very good. Like for primary DH, that this should not be the case. A primary DH should be a guy who if he's like a Geno Suarez type, a guy who's going to strike out a lot, but he's going to hit damn near 60 bombs this year. That's who the DH should be. But instead, we got Pavin, stinking up the joint, and supposedly, he's in the lineup as much as he can versus right-handers, and he should be good against right-handers. Look at his splits against right-handers. He's batting 275, 384, 468, so 852 OPS. That's good. I'm not going to say that's not good. That's good. Let's look at Randall Grichuk versus right-handed batters. 333, 343, 533 and a 876 OPS.
Sounds a
He's
lot better than
20
Pavin.
he's 20 points higher than Pavin. He's getting better as the season goes on. I mean, despite the fact that Grichuk plays once every 2 weeks or so when Tori takes him out of a cage, like there's no reason why Randall Grichuk shouldn't be our everyday DH. I mean, look at his numbers. Last 30 games, 263, 298, 461, higher than Pavin. Last 15 games, 263, 311, 421, higher than Pavin. Last 7 games, 278, 273, 444, all higher than Pavin Smith. There's no reason why Pavin Smith should be in his lineup as much as he is. He should be in his lineup once a week. And you're talking about black holes in this lineup. I mean, I know you're specifically hating on Jose Herreras, but again, I don't want to blame Jose as much
Catchers
because
aren't the main. They're not supposed to be the main run
they're not
provider.
the
You're
main
designated
run
fucking hitter.
providers.
And
We knew what was going to happen. I think in this case, both of these cases are failures from Hazen, and I get Tory for putting him Pavin in, but specifically Hazen for not making any sort of backup plan for Gabby Moreno. Gabby he had the scares in the 2023 playoffs. At that point, I should have alerted Hazen to go out and get at least a decent catcher, a guy who can, maybe he's going to bat 250, 700 OPS, but he's going to be able to take runners out. But instead, we go Jose Herrera, who's batted 150, a 500 OPS. That's, I mean, Alex Avila at least walked.
oh
Talk
god,
about walking. It's like at
I can't
least
believe I got
Alex Avila
reminded of
was.
Alex Avila's
Oh my
career as a
god,
Diamondback.
Jeff Mathis was an incredible play caller and could throw runners out like crazy. Like we're talking about guys like Nick Ahmed. Not Nick Ahmed was not good on offense, but he was a Gold Glove defender.
They
So
provided
at least
some value somewhere.
yeah, you had value there. And with Herrera, like his play calling is a little bit iffy. With some, a lot of those home runs, sometimes you see you're like, why did they call that pitch? And he doesn't throw runners out. He doesn't keep runners on. He just does nothing great for this team. And I know he had a couple hits the other day, but it is just two. There's two black holes in this lineup, and as of right now, they're everyday players, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah, and it's funny because we were talking about the on base, saying like Pavins is just over league minimum. Oh, he gets on base. Looking at Jose Herrera's numbers with him, it's kind of even more depressing. Like again, the few home runs here and there has definitely saved Pavins numbers, but over Jose Herrera's last 30 games, again, a lot of it was, it wasn't starting as much as Pavin, so it's a smaller sample size in general. He only has 91 at bats the entire season, but over his last 30 games, Herrera has 86 ABs. He has a 307 on base, whereas Pavin has had 83 at bats over his last 30 games and is a 320 on base. So what, a .013 difference in on base percentage for our black hole in the lineup as a catcher who again there's not unless you're Cal Raleigh or even Gabby Moreno time. Like again, I love Gabby. I don't even know if I'd put him in the same category as Cal Raleigh at the current time where he's a catcher that's rare who's actually hitting for power. I mean, like again, if you guys haven't looked it up, Cal Raleigh is doing something that like I don't think any catcher's ever done. He might break Salvador Perez's single season record for catcher home runs, and we're not even at the All Star break.
He
But
might get 60.
yeah,
That's
dude, I would
crazy.
I would love if he broke Aaron Judge's home run record. Oh my god. Um, but again, like our main DH over the last 30 games has just a little bit higher of an OBP than Jose Herrera. And their batting average isn't that crazy either. Like Jose is hitting 186 in those 86 at bats. Pavin's hitting 217. The slugging is where it's different because Jose has a 267 slug. Pavin is a 349. Where those few home runs over again 2 home runs in his last 30 games, those have really saved it, and a few doubles here and there really keep the numbers afloat. But and again, I don't want to. I feel like every episode would pretty much go on like our tangents on Pavin, but and that's what sucks is like we're not, at least for me, we're not trying to have it come across as like we want these guys to fail to be right. Like I would prefer, even we said at the beginning of the season, I would love for Pavin when he was hitting and had like a 1200 plus OPS. I would love for that to be Pavin the rest of the season, the rest of his career, and I would eat shit about it. I would be reminded about it every single day, and I'd be okay with that. I'd rather have that be the case. But the annoying thing is the amount of people online that would take a 50 game sample size and would try to like add us and would always be like, "Oh, but look at that. You guys wanted to doubt this." I'm like, "Yes, I wanted to doubt it. Like this is a very very small sample size. You're taking 50 at bats now, but you're ignoring the over 1,000 at bats from before." And that's just the frustrating thing is again, Pavin. I've even said in multiple discords, R is one of the other the PHNX one, even online. Like Pavin has, and we even said it tonight. Pavin has value when he's used in a proper way, not as the main left-handed hitting designated hitter option. I'm sorry, that's just not going to cut it. Like I know a lot of, especially at the beginning of the season, people were like, "Oh, well, Jock Peterson and Christian Walker are hitting like ass for their new teams. Pavin's actually hitting well. Like this is why you guys are managers." I'm like, "Yes, cool," but again, he should not be a designated hitter. He should not be a DH. Like he has a use in some form. It's just not as the main primary, designated hitter because he strikes out way too much. Like again, like even Gabe said earlier, the 31 strikeouts over his last 30 games, like that's not the guy that everyone he gets on base, he doesn't strike out much. He's not a Luis Arias out there, but he's a good enough hitter, which again, I'm not doubting. He has a good eye at the plate. But at some point, you gotta be like, okay, is he a good eye? Is he a good hitter for a designated hitter, or is he a good hitter for a platoon first baseman every now and then? Like he has currently the highest strikeout rate in his career ever. He hasn't had an above 25% strikeout rate in his entire career, starting from 2020 going all the way through last year. Again, that's
I
over a
mean,
thousand
just
IBs.
look at his expected batting average. I know expected stats aren't everything because you still have to perform, but his expected batting average for the season is 222, and I think that tells the actual story. I think his average is still inflated just because he was batting damn near 500 after 2 weeks. Like that's still going down, and I think this is more indicative of what he truly has been this season. There's been a lot of luck, and I hate to say luck, but there has been. I can count the amount of games where he just hits the absolute worst tiny little blooper that falls, or the ball just barely rolls past the defender, and like I can't really see his batting average of balls in play, but I bet you anything that's kind of just like the crazier one. For the longest time, it was at 600. and that was about a month into the season. I think that's what saved his average right now. It's just the fact that the weirdly when he would put the ball in play, it would go for for an average or something. But was it 5 home runs now that he has? 5 6 home runs, barely 20 RBI as a primary DH. I think is completely unacceptable. And at some point, I mean, at least is saying to DFA him. I mean, I would, but you hate to like say I don't want to rag on guys as much, but he's just not performing. And I mean, you look at his Savant page, is everything is just a lot of
Don't
blue.
look at
The
it
only
if you value your mental health, but look at it if you want to see what we're talking about.
and I mean the only thing is just he doesn't chase, yeah, and he walks. That's it. His K rate is at 31.5. We talk about guys, not being brought up from Reno because well they're at 30% strikeout rate. Let's not bring him up. It's going to struggle with the major leagues. Ours DH, the guy that everyone for some reason loves. I mean, not everyone here in chat, but I mean on Twitter and even in the front office, he has a 30% strikeout rate. That's crazy. The only guy who's going to have that I would allow to have that sort of a high
It's
strikeout
Gino.
rate is Gino or freaking like Joey Gallo in this, the last, 2 years or 3 years of prime, or Mark Reynolds, where he was walking, he was striking out 250 times, but he was also hitting 30 or 40 bombs.
Yeah.
And
Mark
unless
Reynolds is actually the
Pavin,
last D-back to have 40 home runs. I believe Nugget put
yeah,
up in our Discord. He had like 40 in like 2009.
yeah. So I mean, again, I don't want Pavin to suck. Like I want him to be good. Like like you said, if he had a 1200 OPS still at this point, we're talking MVP. We're talking about this team possibly being in this in the same category as the Dodgers right now, but instead we have this complete black hole there who strikes out twice, gets a walk, and then grounds out into a double play. That's it. That's what Pavin is and has been for the last 2 months. And I mean, Brandon Grichuk needs to play a lot more. And like I just showed you his splits. He's hitting very well against righties. He's struggling a little bit against lefties, but again, he's barely batting at all. I think if you give him enough play time, Brandon Grichuk can be a guy who has about an 800 OPS and 270, 280 batting average, and a consistent 270 and 800 OPS.
Yeah, and I'll get one more Pavin stat out here before because again we don't want to make this entire thing because Pavin was the only one that sucked today. Again, this is a punt lineup against the worst team in baseball, so a lot of guys just failed to show up. Like even like ever since his I think game against the Mariners where we talked about maybe Alec actually turning it around, he's been pretty atrocious. Like I think he's had like only a few hits since then, so he's been pretty bad. Um, but I believe Scott Mack was asking what Pavin's I'm looking for it. WRC plus, yeah, say he has a. That's the funny thing is looking at his WRC plus. Like again, the first month really skews a lot of his numbers because his numbers over the entire season are really solid. But with people wanting to do the small sample size, but still 50, 60 ABs in the start of the season, I can play a sample size game too. Going back to May 1st, 5-1 of this year, right? Has 129 plate appearances. That's not a super small sample size. That's a good chunk. He has a 33 strikeout or 33.3 strikeout percentage, an 88 WRC plus. 100 is league average. He has an 88 WRC plus, a 220 average, 333 on base, 330 slugging for 644 OPS, 110 ISO, 338 BABIP. Again, he's just it's it's been very rough to see, especially again, it's not like at times he's been like, the only one that's struggling. Because even in the Discord, like Corbin, before he got hit on the hand, he's been going through kind of a rough month and a half. We've seen his average go from like the 330 at the beginning of the season to, the 250, 260 mark. So it's not like he's the only one struggling. But again, other guys at least provide some kind of value somewhere else. Other guys aren't our primary designated hitter. No other guy in the lineup has half of their job title literally what they should be doing hitter, and he's not doing that. And that's the frustrating thing is again like I'd be more than happy for Pavin to prove us all wrong, to prove us as the true haters and doubters that a lot of people are like having us be. But I think there's a difference between being a hater and a doubter and somebody that's just looking at real stats and like knowing, okay, hey, you know what, maybe this is who this guy is. Again, not a terrible player, not Jose Herrera level terrible at the plate, but he's not what he was at the beginning of the season that a lot of people are like saying, oh, see, this is what he's going to be. No, it's just not what he is. And I I don't know. We could go on this the rest of I feel like the evening here, just kind of ranting about the Pavin, Herrera, the lineup in general. I know even Jose Herrera, his 2 hits the other day. Cool, finally had 2 hits in Coors. Do it in any other ballpark than Coors, and maybe I'd be happy with him as our main catcher for right now. Which, god damn it, Gabby's value really is shown every time he's not on the field, whether it's in the batter's box. Because even if he doesn't get a hit, he at least has like decent ABs where it seems like guys are throwing it down the middle, begging for Jose just to put the ball in play for some kind of soft contact. And whenever he does actually get a hit, it's like a broken clock being right at least twice a day. But I guess, unless there's any other final thoughts you had on this Rocky series, anything else you wanted to bring up before we do a quick series preview on our upcoming one against another.
They should have swept, and I think some of the comments are echoing the as well. Dalton Feely said it. This team should have swept with how bad this Rockies team is right now and how bad they're going to be. There's no reason why this team should have 2 wins on this season, and we have, I believe, 8 more games, right?
Against
7 more
teams under
games.
500.
It's 13. Hold on, 13. Yeah, 13 games. Yeah, okay, sorry, 7 more games. They have to win all those 7 games.
We're a math
Like
pod now, baby. Let's go.
the math pod, yeah. uh, yeah, with the way that these divisions are going to go, the team that beats the Rockies the most it's going to go, whoever beats them the most, the second most, and third most. That's just the way things are going to work out in this division and in this wild card. The D-backs aren't 10-3, 11-2. This team, I mean, I don't know how you can see, them not beating the Rockies and think, yeah, this team is truly a wild card, even World Series contending team.
Yes, I do agree. It's very frustrating. These are the 9 games where you got to put your foot to the pedal to the metal, and you got to do what you can to win these games because these are the games where you really make up ground. And not again, maybe not the division because that might be too far. We've seen crazy things happen, but at least the wild card because it's not out of reach. Wanted to go on to a few of the comments here before we move on to our series preview for the next series coming up. Um, I know Scott Max saying in the comments, if Carroll wanted to really help the team, he hit singles and doubles and steal bases, but he's selfish and only wants to pad his home run stats. I don't necessarily agree with that fully. Maybe there are some times where he might take a few healthier cuts and hacks, whatnot, but I wouldn't say that he's being selfish. I think he's just going through one of those where maybe guys are pitching him a little bit different, and he's having a tougher time readjusting to maybe how they're adjusting to him. Because even as Bryce is saying here, this guy's had the same swing since high school, minus where maybe the hands are. I do still think that again he's just again going through one of the little rough things, and especially he's found a little more pop in his bat. I don't think a lot of people had him being a 20+ home run guy in the first half of a season. I know a lot of scouts and whatnot like. We saw in his rookie year, people are like, oh yeah, he could be a 20 home run guy. He's still in the league in triples. He's still got the speed and everything. But again, I'm not gonna be upset that he's swinging a little bit heftier at times because we've seen when he makes contact, boy does it go far. Tanner saying, will McCain replace a Ramos Garcia? And that's my guess. I'm assuming that they saw a Ramos Garcia, and while not terrible, again, it's hard to say he's that much worse than Jose Herrera, but I think that they realize they're like, you know what, might as well get some veteran who at least has a little bit more of a track record with major leaguers, major league pitching. They went to get him, which again, anything's better than what we've been getting so far. And if it could at least hold and put a band-aid over on the catcher's position until we get Gabby back, I'm perfectly okay with it. But again, we just need Gabby back, and your fingers crossed that whenever the MRI comes back for Corbin Carroll, we don't have to have the same situation with him where he's out for a few weeks and then we have to call somebody back up and he ends up missing the All-Star game, or even if he doesn't make it, just missing Corbin in general is a death blow to this team, and I would say almost just 100% puts us into the sellers category, and I don't want to see that happen. But moving on to our next series that's coming up after this, the D-backs are heading to the Windy City. This time, thank fucking God, we're not playing the Cubs because we all know that those games can be just absolute fucking hellholes. We're going to face the Chicago White Sox, who have actually been playing a little bit better as of late. I believe they did just, someone in our comments was saying earlier, they did just actually take a series against the Toronto Blue Jays, who we just lost to. So it seems like all these bad teams are starting to play well right before we get there. So just the most 2025 D-backs luck you could possibly imagine. But tomorrow night, Monday, 4:40 Arizona time is the start of the game. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez on the bump, 2-4 with a win-loss record of 5.93 ERA, going up against Shane Smith, who is 3-4 with a 2.85 ERA. So he's actually been pretty solid for the White Sox this season. A 1.22 WHIP in 72 innings. So he's actually been pretty solid for the White Sox. So hopefully we can, see the offense show up, and maybe Erod can be pretty solid. He has been pretty decent over his last few outings. Tuesday's Game 2 matchup is going to see Ryan Nelson, 4-2 with the 3.88 ERA, going up against Burke of the White Sox, Sean Burke, who is 3-7 with the 4.50 ERA, so almost double of what I'm forgetting his name. Well, double of what Smith's ERA is. And then Wednesday for the day game, that's going to be an 11 a.m. start time, so a little bit of afternoon baseball. We're going to get Zach Gallen going up again. He's now 5-8 on the season with the 5.60 ERA. And the White Sox do not have an announced starter just yet. So again, it's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez, Ryan Nelson, and Zach Gallen taking the rubber in these 3 games here in the Windy City, as the D-backs need to at least win 2 of the 3 to make us not, imagine the smell of teen spirit everywhere and have me to do some summer painting, which I don't want to do. But what are some of the things that you're going to have your eye out for? I know you were patting yourself on the back a little bit about calling and predicting Cattell to kind of break out for the Rocky series. Maybe there's a player that you predict breaking out for this White Sox series. Maybe there's a pitcher hitter that you might have your eye on. Maybe there's a certain matchup, somebody in the White Sox lineup, because again, the White Sox have been playing pretty decently as of late. What are your predictions? Maybe something that you're going to be keeping a close eye on as we head to the south side of Chicago.
I mean, everything's going to come down to the pitching. I think overall the pitching, I know it's an obvious answer, but how good is the D-backs pitching going to perform? Because Shane Smith is no slouch. I know this is his rookie season. He has a little over 70 innings so far. He's about, I think, 8th or 9th being favored for the Rookie of the Year. I think if he wasn't on the White Sox, if he was on the Yankees or something, he'd be top 2 or top 3. He's been really, really good for them. He's a great pitcher so far in his young career. So don't count on this.
Game giving up over 3 runs in a game, and that was last week. The Cardinals.
Yeah, so don't count on this team to score a lot on him. They have to do most of their damage against the bullpen. It's not just him. I think it's going to have to be even against the pitcher Burke. Again, no slouch either. He's doing a lot better than I think most people realize. Again, just unfortunate plays with the Chicago White Sox. But they have the worst offense, if not the second worst offense in baseball. So, Nelson, I can see him going 7 shutout innings, and everyone else has to do the same. I think if this team doesn't perform against them, especially like our starting pitcher, if they don't perform against the White Sox, they have to make a move for a starting pitcher. And if the bullpen struggles, they have to make a move. And if the offense struggles, then there's something, at least with the bullpen, they can hit them. But it's going to be and should be all hands on deck. No more freaking punting. They can't get on a run. They need to take these next 3 games. It's not acceptable for them to, win 4 out of 6, from these 2 teams. And if you have the Marlins series coming up, if this team goes 6-3 against those teams, I think it's a failure. This team has to go at least
7-2, in my opinion.
7-2, 8-1. Anything else is complete failure.
And it is tough to say that because, again, baseball's a hard sport. I know even Brandon in our group chat brings it up all the time. Like, these are still MLB teams, but, again, good teams that are playoff teams beat these bad teams, and we need to see that happen. But, again, we appreciate all of you guys for tuning on in here for another fun episode of D-backs Dispatch, joining the 2 of the 3 here, as, again, Brandon was out with a little bit of under-the-weather bug. Thank you very much for guys tuning on in here. Again, follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, join the Discord. Do the review if you guys could. If you guys see it, I believe it's pinned on our Twitter, or at least somewhere in our Twitter. Make sure you guys go over to azsakepick.com as well to check out all the great content over there. And hopefully for the next series, we'll be back as a trio to discuss, fingers crossed, a sweep. But in the meantime, you guys all take it easy. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. Great start to your week, and we'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Under the light. with Josh in the back, bringing it on.